Have you ever noticed that some performers seem almost immune to pressure? How they play just as well at auditions as they do in informal run-throughs? Or just as well in a high-stakes performance as in the practice room? While others who are just as experienced and just as skilled seem to fall apart when it counts? What's the difference? The obvious answers are talent, or maybe more practice, or more solid technique. But what if the real differentiator is something more specific than any of those things, and something that can actually be trained? Hi, I'm Noah Kageyama. I'm a performance psychologist and Juilliard-trained violinist, and I translate research from the performance science literature into practical strategies to help you practice smarter and perform your best when it matters most. Today, we'll look at a study that put two types of training under real pressure to see which one held up. We'll see what the results suggest about what actually protects performance when it counts, and I'll share a few specific things you can do to start building that skill. Previous research on expert performers has found that in the moments just before executing a skill, like before shooting a free throw, before hitting a golf ball, or before beginning to play the first note, the best performers aren't just waiting, they're doing something deliberate with their attention. Studies in this area have observed that expert performers' eyes tend to be quieter and less active in those last few critical moments before they begin. Contrast that with what most of us tend to do under pressure, where our eyes dart around, taking in all kinds of extraneous visual information, reflecting a mind that hasn't quite settled yet. This phenomenon is known as quiet eye, and it refers specifically to the amount of time a performer spends fixating on a key location before initiating movement. Longer quiet eye periods tend to go hand in hand with better performance, and as skills become more complex, quiet eye periods get longer, which suggests that our brain actually needs that settling in time to get itself organized before it can execute at its best. In other words, the best performers have developed a mental skill that most of us tend to underinvest in, the ability to deliberately direct their attention in the moments before they begin and hold it there even when the pressure is high. Most of the research on this had been done in relatively low-stakes settings. So the question that a team of British and Canadian researchers had was, does this mental skill actually hold up when the anxiety kicks in? Their study, published in 2014, involved 20 first-year surgery residents. Everyone started with a baseline test of their surgical knot-tying abilities. Then the residents were divided into two groups. Both received additional training, but of very different kinds. The first group, the technical training group, received traditional instruction on the correct hand movements for tying the knot. The second group, the quiet eye training group, learned something different. Rather than focusing on their hands and fingers, they were taught to fixate their gaze on one precise location before each throw of the knot, and to hold that gaze for a beat before moving. They also watched video of an expert surgeon doing exactly this. A black circle on screen showed where the surgeon was looking and for how long. The technical training group watched the same video, but without the circle. After this additional training, everyone was tested again, but in two very different conditions. In the low anxiety condition, residents were told the test was for calibration purposes only, and they wouldn't be compared to anyone else. So there was nothing at stake. In the high anxiety condition, they were told that their performance would be videotaped, that their teachers would be evaluating them, and that they would be ranked against their peers. And to add a little extra pressure, everyone was told that their performance so far put them in the bottom 25%. Both groups improved under the low anxiety condition, which is to be expected, but when the pressure was turned up, it was a very different story. The technical training group, when anxious, essentially regressed. Their performance dropped back near baseline levels, and all of their technical training didn't help them handle the pressure of the moment. The quiet eye group, on the other hand, continued to perform well under pressure, and they completed their task more quickly and more efficiently than the technical training group. So why would training your attention rather than your technique provide that kind of protection against pressure? Well, when the researchers looked at the eye movement data, here's what they found. When the pressure increased, the quiet eye group remained disciplined. They kept their gaze focused on one location for longer, and they looked at fewer things overall. The technical training group's eyes, on the other hand, became more active. They were fixating on more things and glancing at each one more quickly, which the researchers interpreted as a sign of increased distractibility under pressure. And that makes pretty good sense because for most of us, when anxiety kicks in, our attention does tend to get more scattered. The technical training group hadn't been given any tools for managing that, so when the stakes went up, their focus went out the window and their performance seemed to reflect this. The quiet eye group had been trained to do something very specific with their attention before initiating movement, and that seemed to help protect their skills even when the stakes were high. So what does this mean for us? A few things. Thing number one, the differentiator we're talking about is a specific mental skill, the ability to deliberately direct your attention in the moments before you begin and to keep it there, even when the pressure is high. Like any skill, it can be trained, but we do have to make some time for it. It's really easy to put all of our time into developing the technical side of our playing, but investing a tiny bit of time into the mental side of things can help to ensure that this work comes through when we're on stage. Thing number two, it's worth being clear about what developing the skill actually looks like, because it's easy to get the wrong impression. It's not about picking a spot on your music stand and staring at it blankly. Staring at something while your mind races through everything that could go wrong is probably not going to help very much. The point is to slow down and focus on the most important task-relevant details right before you begin. Like, what is this piece actually about? How do you want the very first note to sound? What is the single most important thing you need to do in the first moment of playing? Think of the eye fixation as just the outward sign of something happening mentally, a deliberate act of attention that clears out distracting thoughts and puts you inside what's about to happen before you play the first note. Thing number three, if this isn't already a natural part of how you approach the beginning of a piece, it's worth building it into your practice before you need it in performance. The Quiet Eye group in this study had practiced their pre-movement routine under training conditions, which I imagine is a big part of why it held up when the pressure kicked in. If you try this for the first time at an audition, it probably won't feel like second nature yet. But if you start practicing it during run-throughs and mock performances, where the stakes are lower, when the high-pressure moment arrives, it'll already be an organic part of your process. Actually, it's quite possible that you're already doing something like this on good days, where you don't feel so rushed before you begin, and you take a breath and let yourself hear the opening phrase in your head before you begin to play. The goal, of course, is just to make sure that this becomes more of a regular habit, not just something that happens on occasion. If you'd like to go deeper into the mental skills and practice strategies that help you play your best when it matters most, I put together a free 7-day email course called Pressure Proof that walks you through 5 essential strategies for shrinking the gap between practice and performance. The link to sign up is in the description below.